This week, I'm sharing with you another lesson from my upcoming course, Beginner Synthesis in Ableton Live. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how to create that classic house organ bass using just Ableton Live's Drift. And this is a device that is available to all live users, whether you're using Live Lite, Intro, Standard, or Suite. If you're interested in learning more about Beginner Synthesis in Ableton Live, you can head to my website at the link in the description. And if you're watching this video at launch, you can sign up for the waitlist. And if you do, you'll get an exclusive launch discount, as well as you will be the first to receive my synth patch cookbook, which I'm still workshopping the title on, free of charge when it drops, which is an excellent accompaniment to this course. But for now, enjoy this free preview lesson. In this lesson, we're going to talk about sound design considerations for bass lines and how to make a bass that is punchy, thick, and cuts through, which is really challenging. No matter how complex the sounds get, its role still remains the same. And one of the best examples for how to execute the role of a bass from a sound design perspective is that classic house organ sound. It's probably most famous for the track Show Me Love by Robin S. But you've heard this sound literally everywhere if you listen to house music or garage or frankly any type of dance music. It is ubiquitous, and I'm going to show you how to make it with Drift. But before we get started, make sure to download the MIDI clip from the area directly below this lesson. Okay, so here's the bass line that I'm working with today, and I have just an initialized version of Drift here. Together, that sounds like this. That's not the sound we're going for. So to get there, let's start first with oscillator 1. We are going to set its wave shape to sine, and we're actually going to set its octave to -2. We're going to bring the mixer up to 0, and we're going to bypass the filter entirely. And so let's disengage oscillator 2. And really now what we have is just a low, subby sine wave. And unless you're listening on headphones or studio monitors, that might not be coming through for you. It is a rich, deep sound. And because our oscillator is set to produce a sound 2 octaves lower than the incoming MIDI note, that means that instead of A2, we're actually hitting A0 and we're bottoming out at G0, which really is in that sweet spot for super strong sub sounds. Now let's re-engage oscillator 2, and we're going to use oscillator 2 to create the overtones. And this is the part of the sound that is going to translate well into smaller systems. Well, the sub frequency from oscillator 1 just really carries the body and the girth of the sound. Let's engage oscillator 2. We are going to set the wave shape to square. We are going to bring the octave to 0, and we're going to max out the detune to 7 semitones. So this square wave is now a perfect fifth and 2 octaves higher. And so it's mimicking and essentially serving the role of the harmonic or the overtones for this sound. And finally, we're going to bring the mixer up to -3. So right now we're going to just barely hear this sine wave, and we're going to really hear the square wave. Now we need to tame that square wave so that it feels more like overtones and less like the whole sound itself. And to do that, we're going to use the filter. And since oscillator 1 is bypassing filter processing, we can devote the entirety of the filter to sculpting oscillator 2. So we are going to set it to type 2 so that we have that more aggressive cutoff point. It's going to be 24 decibels per octave at the cutoff instead of 12 decibels per octave. We're going to set the key tracking to 100% or 1, and we are going to set our low pass to crazy low 30 hertz. Now we're really just using envelope 1 for this sound, so we are going to actually route the mod source to being envelope 1, and we'll set that to 50%. And so now we have this really strong sub and this really subtle sound on top. This is the foundation of this kind of house organ bass sound. It really is. Now, let's make a few other tweaks. We're just going to make an ever so slight adjustment to envelope 1. I want to open up the sustain just slightly to 75%. And then we're going to make sure that our mode is set to mono. Now, this is sort of your vanilla house organ bass. If you want to make adjustments to it, where we're looking at primarily then is oscillator 2 to be able to introduce some additional bite to that top end. And we can do that by increasing the filter cutoff. You have to be careful because after a certain point, it's just going to sound like the square wave. So you have to be cognizant of that. And you can introduce some more brightness, but at some point you will overpower the sine wave that we are using as the fundamental. Now you can always balance that out by reducing the amplitude. But it gives us a similar result. We have brighter overtones thanks to oscillator 2, but they are overall quieter. So you can balance that as you need. Now, I like sitting this at -3 as that I feel is a great saturation point for our filter, but you can adjust as you like. Now let's talk about some other ways that you can tweak this sound if you'd like. So we could actually route our filter modulation source to being envelope 2. And then we could use envelope 2 to introduce other movement. Now this is going to start to drift us a little bit further away from this house organ sound, but this is a realm that you can start to play in to customize the sound to your own needs. With that long attack, it sounds almost flute-like, which I think is really cool. And at 0 attack, once again, it just sounds like that house organ sound again. So that's a range that you can really play in. Now, you could also instead route the filter back to envelope 1 and use envelope 2 to control the noise oscillator. And we do that by going over to the modulation matrix here, and I'm going to select envelope 2 as our mod source, and then we are going to route it to the noise gain and set it to 100%. And we can use this to add even more attack to the sound without having to make our square wave oscillator too loud. And so I'm going to remove this from being routed to the filter, and then I'm going to bring up the volume and use the attack and decay with the sustain definitely set to 0 to set the amount of transient I want to add to the signal. And so now, really, just so crazy fast. Once again, when we're thinking in terms of time scale, 1,000 milliseconds is a second. And so very quickly, over the course of 7.68 milliseconds, this goes from 3.5 decibels all the way to nothing. But it adds this perceptible and really, frankly, quite nice bite to the front of this bass line. Versus if I have it disengaged. Now, another thing that you could do to play around with making this your own is to adjust the shape control on oscillator 1. This would help to introduce a little bit of extra harmonics that bridge the gap between this very, very low sub-sine wave oscillator and this square wave oscillator that is 2 octaves and a perfect fifth higher than it, generating some overtones. Additionally, you could swap over to a triangle wave, which is very, very similar to a sine wave, but it's going to add a few extra harmonics. Additionally, you can play around with the playback mode. So stereo can work really nicely for this sound. You could also play around with unison. And see if the drift does anything for you. So maxed out at 20% unison, it very much sounds like we've slapped a chorus on this. The one thing then that I would recommend would be to add an instance of utility at the end and engage bass mono to really make sure that that low sub remains mono. And then you've got everything above 120 hertz, which is really nice and wide. And you could combine these to any sort of degree that you would like. Now, I've showed you a range of different ways that you can customize this sound. Before moving on to the next lesson, mess around with this a little bit and try to find your version of the classic house organ. If you need some additional ideas for inspiration, I would encourage you to play around with the oscillator waveforms and the wave shape. And additionally, this is another patch in which we have not used the LFO. So how can you take advantage of your knowledge of the LFO to customize this sound to how you would like to use it? Once you've done that, move on to the next lesson, and I'll see you there. Thank you so much for watching. As I mentioned, if you are watching this video at launch, head to my website and join the waitlist to get an exclusive launch discount. And if you purchase the course at launch with that discount, you're going to get my upcoming synth recipe cookbook free of charge. If you're watching this video sometime in the future, the course is available. Pick it up. What are you waiting for? Till next time.